Last summer, mass protests led to the fall of the government in Bangladesh. But that victory for the people came at a cost. This is the story of one 20-year-old man killed by police in his pursuit of freedom. A story repeated over and over as families across the country search for justice. The protest began in July last year, with students taken to the streets. But as law enforcement began firing deadly rounds, the demonstrations morphed into a mass movement against the government of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Protesters saw her as an authoritarian, with the country having held no free and fair elections for 16 years. Sheikh Hasina accused her critics of being terrorists. It all came to a head on August the 5th, when she resigned and fled the country as people stormed her official residence. A great day for the movement, but also a deadly one, with around 300 killed. And that brings us to the story of Mohammed Ridoy. The International Truth and Justice Project has used mobile phone and social media footage to analyse what happened to him on that day, August the 5th. As news spreads that Sheikh Hasina has resigned, people begin celebrating here in Ghazipur, north of Dhaka. Outside a police station, protesters turn over a vehicle and set it alight. Many begin to disperse when officers in riot gear emerge from the station, but some remain. One man stretches out his arms in defiance. Just before 5 o'clock, police open fire, evidence of what authorities have long been accused of, using lethal firepower against unarmed civilians. At 22 minutes past 5, footage shows officers detaining someone. It's Mohammed Ridoy, a student working as an auto rickshaw driver to fund his education. He's taken out on the street and quickly surrounded by several officers. Seconds later, he's shot. So what happened? You can see this officer holding a baton, looking ready to strike Ridoy. But ignore him. It's this officer you need to pay attention to. He circles around the group, his gun seemingly poised, before coming in behind Ridoy. As one officer in front slaps Ridoy in the face, the man behind shoots him in the back at point-blank range. The police then walk away. There are still signs of life from Ridoy. Around 30 seconds later, some officers return and take the body, holding a limb each. They carry him straight past a hospital, a trail of blood in their wake. One officer waves at someone filming the scene. 3 men take him into an alley that leads towards the police station. Ridoy's body was never seen again. The Inspector General of Police in Bangladesh told Channel 4 News that a criminal case has been initiated into the killing of Mohammed Ridoy. 2 police officers involved in the killing have already been arrested and sent to court. With no body yet found, Ridoy is not on the official death toll, and it's estimated that anywhere from 800 to 1,500 people were killed during the protests of July and August last year. The Inspector General told us that he was very reasonably sure that the police chief and the minister in charge of Home Affairs were aware of the police's actions. While Bangladesh is no longer ruled by Sheikh Hasina, many of the individuals responsible for these killings are still in place. So for the families of the victims, this country cannot move on until there is justice for those they have lost.
Well, shortly before Anti-Corruption Minister Tulip Siddiq resigned this afternoon, I spoke to Yasmin Suka, the Executive Director of the International Truth and Justice Project and member of the South African Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which was set up in the aftermath of the fall of apartheid in the country. I asked her how confident she is that those responsible for atrocities in Bangladesh will be brought to justice.
I'm very confident that the perpetrators of the police brutality against protesters between July and August will be held accountable. I met with the prosecutor from the International Criminal Tribunal and was really reassured by the fact that he's taking these cases very seriously.
But can Bangladesh move on as a country if Sheikh Hasina, nobody was more powerful than her, perhaps nobody more responsible than her, isn't held to account and faces justice herself?
The Bangladeshi criminal justice system doesn't think that it's necessary that she be here when they begin to put her on trial. And they are quite clear that in terms of their law, they can conduct such a trial in absentia. And they're absolutely determined to do that.
We have seen some absolutely horrific images of police brutality in Bangladesh. And a lot of those people will remain in their posts, won't they, regardless of the truth and reconciliation process? How will anyone ever trust the police in Bangladesh again?
You have to root out the police who, in fact, were responsible for the violence. You know, you also have the reliance really on a colonial police act, which was more about protecting the narrow interests of the elite. And I think that that is something that would need to go.
There are human rights and anti-corruption investigations into Sheikh Hasina in Bangladesh. She is the aunt of Tulip Siddiq. Will all that be of interest to investigators in Bangladesh?
Of course, any investigation into members of a family are going to be very important. But you know, one aspect that strikes one is the fact that at no point in the course of the atrocities that took place in Bangladesh have you heard Tulip acknowledge the atrocities that have taken place. And I think that that's a really big gap.
Tulip Siddiq is not here to defend herself, and she denies any wrongdoing.
What she should be doing is, in fact, stepping down until such time as the investigation is complete. Because when you look at the question of corruption, you know, the commission that was dealing with the economy handed in its report yesterday. And the figures that it raised in that report are absolutely phenomenal. They talked about $16 billion being laundered annually under Sheikh Hasina's regime, which has really affected the economy.
Yasmin Sukha, thank you so much for speaking with us.
Thank you for having me.